So I want to welcome everybody who's participating today and to thank anybody who is potentially watching this online at home. I appreciate the fact that you're probably attending this workshop or watching this because you have faced some type of identity theft issue or financial scam. So I'm happy to be here. My name's Gina. I'm an attorney at Housing and Economic Rights Advocates. We're a legal nonprofit. We're based in downtown Oakland, but we serve California statewide. And today's topic, we are going to be covering financial scams and identity theft, but we work on all sorts of debt and credit issues. We have lots of attorneys in the office who are happy to do one-on-one consultations if you need it. On the last slide of today's presentation, we will provide our contact information in case you want to call our office and get a free consultation. Like I said, we're a legal nonprofit, so our services are free. So we encourage you, if you need some one-on-one support, we're happy to provide that for you. And with that, I'm going to jump right in. Let me do this and just say, okay, so in terms of our agenda for today, I'm going to start off and just talk about safe and affordable credit first and foremost. And, you know, this may seem like an unusual way to start, but when we're talking about scams and identity theft, there's also this idea that, you know, oftentimes when you are faced with dealing with a scam or an identity theft issue, many times it's in relation to you may be facing financial hardship, and then this is just an extra layer that's happening. And so when we start, I want to make sure that folks realize one of the ways that you can get into trouble or face or deal with some type of scam is when you don't understand credit and how to shop around for credit, and you get yourself into something that's some type of problematic product. So I want to talk about debt traps and understanding some basic loan terms to help you avoid some of those types of scams or problematic products. Then we're going to talk about consumer scams in general, some general red flags, things that you can do to avoid those types of scams. And then we'll go ahead and cover identity theft. What is it? How to identify it? How to protect yourself? How to avoid it? All of that good stuff. So we have a lot of content to cover today, so bear with me. Okay, so first, you know, when we talk about scams in terms of bad financial products, usually the thing that we really try and encourage our clients to stay away from is something called a debt trap. So a debt trap is when you go and you take out an additional loan to pay off, let's say you already owe money that you really can't afford to pay back, and then you take out another loan that's very expensive, but it's in order, you take out the second loan in order to pay off the first to get out of that one. And so you just end up into this cycle of debt where you're just continuing to borrow more and more money to pay off a previous loan. And usually these products that you're relying on oftentimes are very expensive, high cost loans. And so examples would be something like a payday loan, where it's you give permission to the lender to basically take the repayment out of your next paycheck or at your next pay cycle, or a deposit advance loan or tax advance loan. You're expecting to get money back after you file your tax returns. But these loans, these are very, very high cost loans. Oftentimes we can see them be, you know, 140% interest, something just completely egregious. And so, you know, oftentimes folks will rely on these because they are more accessible, or maybe, for example, a payday lender is within your neighborhood. But I really want to make sure that if you're thinking about borrowing money, that you really understand what you're getting yourself into, because at the front end of things, many people don't really realize what the actual cost of the loan is. And only once they're in collections or dealing with that product and being pursued for paying it back, then they really realize what they got themselves into. So we're going to try and avoid some of that by talking quickly about how to understand and read loans. So when you're thinking about borrowing money, you're supposed to be provided with some type of disclosure within that paperwork. And you're going to see a lot of language you may not understand. There's probably a lot of fine print, but at a bare minimum, you should always look for something called the TILA box. It stands for Truth in Lending Act box. And it looks like what you see on the screen here. It's got 4 columns and it will cover these 4 categories. And these boxes are going to give you a breakdown of the actual cost of the loan that you're thinking about taking out. Now, for example, in the far left, you have the annual percentage rate, which most people assume is just the interest rate, but it's actually the cost of your credit, both the interest and any fees involved in that particular loan. And it's that cost at a yearly rate. So usually the APR, the annual percentage rate, is slightly higher than the interest rate of the loan, but that's what that figure is. The second column is, in my opinion, one of the most important things you should look for if you're thinking about borrowing money, and that's called the finance charge. And that is, in dollars and cents, how much money it's actually going to cost you to borrow whatever it is you're thinking about borrowing. And I will provide an example on the next slide of a real life example so you can get a better feel for what this means. But finance charge is basically like the cost. If I'm going to borrow $100 and the finance charge is $50, it means I have to pay back an extra $50 for the right to borrow the original $100. So that can make a big difference. If you actually look at the finance charge of certain products, you'll realize how expensive certain loans are over others. The column C, where it says amount financed, that's the amount of money you borrowed. So in my example, that would be the $100. And then in column D is the total amount of payments. That's the total amount you will have to pay over the history of the loan back towards whoever you borrowed from. So in my example, it would be B plus C equals D. So the amount financed is the cost of the loan. Or excuse me, the amount financed is how much you borrowed. The finance charge is how much you have to pay for the right to borrow. And then the total is column D. So let's take this out of the abstract and look at 2 examples. So in here, you can see there's 2 potential loans. Someone is trying to borrow $2,500 and they're offered from the lenders. Here's 2 examples. On the left, the lender is saying, all right, I'll lend you some money for $2,500. Over the course of 12 months. That's the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, you have another type of lender who you would also borrow $2,500 from. You have 2 years to pay it back, and the monthly payment is $244. So, on its face, they sound like they'd be similar if you were just going in and asking someone about 2 products. They're both about 200 and something odd dollars a month to pay back. You're borrowing the exact same amount of money. The payments on the left, you have a year to pay back, and on the right, you have 2 years to pay it back. But if you look at the actual details of between the 2 loans, you see that one is definitely more expensive than the other. On the left, for example, if you look at the finance charge, it's $109. That's how much you're having to pay in order to borrow the $2,500. On the right, it's almost $3,400, technically $3,358 to borrow that same amount of money. So on the left, in total, you will see that you'll pay back the lender $2,609. And on the right, in total, you're paying back $5,858. So as you can see, but in this example, even though these loans, if you were just talking to someone that you need to borrow $2,500 and how much you need to pay every month, you will see that one product is 33 times as expensive as the other product. And so just the basic skill of understanding how to read loan terms can save you a lot of money and prevent you from getting into one of these really expensive products. Because even though they seem convenient or they're close to you and you really need the money, you should really at least understand the basic loan terms so that you don't wind up with a very expensive loan that you had no idea, because all you were thinking about was, well, I can afford the monthly payment and I'm getting the same amount of money. No, the terms of the loan make a big difference. So I just wanted to highlight that for those who, if one of the things they're worried about is being scammed out of their money or getting into really bad products, this is one way you can check if you think that you're getting yourself into a really bad financial product, is check the loan terms in the TILA box. Okay. So in terms of consumer scams in general, a consumer scam, all it really means is that there's some type of where a scammer takes, some type of technology or some type of trick to get people to send money or give out personal information. Their goal is either to get you to pay right away to get your money and just book it out of there before you realize what happened, or try and convince you to provide details about your personal information so that they can use that to commit identity theft, to borrow money in your name, or use or sell your information in a way that you did not consent. So the unfortunate thing is that there are always new scams. Almost all the time, scammers come up with new and creative ways to try and take advantage of folks. And so it's hard to give a complete list of all the scams are out there because they're constantly changing. If you'd like to stay up to date in terms of what are the types of scams that we're seeing more recently, the Federal Trade Commission has a website. If you just go to their website and look at scam alerts, they'll tell you some of the scams that are popping up right now, and you can educate yourself in the types of things that you might expect that are coming, through the door in terms of scams. But here's an example, or some examples of many of the scams that we have seen in the past or that may sound familiar. Some scams you'll hear about are around charity fraud. So for example, folks pretending to raise money for a particular charity and convincing you to pay, and really they have no affiliation with any particular charity or nonprofit, but they're just trying to get you to send money right away. There are healthcare scams. So for example, there have been instances where a good example would be there's some type of health fair or some type of public event, and there's a little trailer and they're providing free quote unquote health checks to seniors or to certain individuals. And they say, all you need to do to participate is provide us a copy of your Medicare card. And, then we'll be able to provide this free wellness check. And they go and they steal your healthcare information because you provided your card or your identity information. And then they use that and they take that information to take advantage of it. So yes, you're technically getting that wellness check, quote unquote, but it's really kind of a ruse in order to get your personal information. So we've heard of that one before. Even more common, we get folks who call in and say, I got a call from the IRS. They said I'm behind, and then I have to pay immediately. And I have to tell folks when they call into our office, there is no reason that you should ever expect that the IRS would take the time to call you. If you actually have a legitimate issue with the IRS, they're going to send you something in writing. It's going to be a proper notice. They are not going to call you on the phone. If you get a call from someone pretending to be from the IRS, it is very, very likely, I can almost guarantee, a scam. And then similar, you're going to get something along those lines. You'll get, I've heard of ones where they pretend to be either from the local courthouse saying you had been sued and you need to pay, or a sheriff's officer. Anytime you're getting calls like that, where you feel like you're threatened by some type of government entity, that is very likely a scam. So just be aware of calls like that. We also hear of, investment scams, trying to invest in some type of, vacation share, home share arrangement, or a home repair scam where someone comes around and says, I've got this great deal. I can do certain repairs to your home for a reduced rate. We hear of all of these types of scams, but the point, like I said before, is that they're constantly changing. And so what do you do? How do you identify if this is a scam? Should I have my antennas up? What should I be wary of? So the number one thing is, if someone comes to you and they give you, they provide an offer to you and it sounds really amazing, almost too good to be true, it probably is. I once had a client who was told that they won the lottery and that all they needed to do was basically just send a voided check in order to claim it. And I asked that client, I said, well, did you ever even participate in the lottery? Did you buy a ticket? Did you put your name in something? No. Well, then it's impossible to win the lottery if you don't play the game. So my point is just, if something sounds really too amazing to be true, it probably is a scam. Another top red flag for any potential scam is if you feel like you're pressured in terms of time or responding. If someone calls and says, you have to make a decision today, you have to pay today, today is the last opportunity, I can't guarantee, that you'll be safe or that this opportunity will be available to you tomorrow. If you are feeling pressure to provide financial information or personal information immediately, that is a really big sign that this is a scam. The other potential red flag would be if you're being asked for private information. The number one is if someone over the phone is asking for a social security number, that is a huge, huge red flag. The only times that you're really ever needing to provide a social security number is usually when you're going to a doctor's office and you have to fill out information for example, for insurance purposes. And even then, they provide it to you at the doctor's office, you're filling out their form. Or for example, if you're applying for a loan that, through a trusted financial institution, that's usually when you provide your social security number. But those institutions aren't going to call you and ask you for that information over the phone. There's really no need ever to be providing your social security number over the phone. And at best, you may need to provide the last 4 digits of your social security number to, if, for example, if you're calling up your bank that you work with, if they're calling to verify your identity, then maybe they'll ask for the last 4 digits of your social security number, but they never ask for your full social. So just be aware of that. Any other information, any questions about insurance numbers, bank account numbers, healthcare numbers, anything where they're asking you to provide in full your identification numbers, that's usually a red flag that you're dealing with a scammer. And then the other major red flag is if you're being told over the phone that whatever product is being peddled or whatever service is being offered, that there's only certain types of money transfers that are accepted. And usually those are ones that are where you're paying immediately and they're very difficult to trace. So that would be, for example, they say that you can only pay by wiring the money or sending cash, or if you have one of those reloadable debit cards where you go to the grocery store, they're basically like gift cards. For example, you see them often in the checkout line. You'll see the little Visa symbol or some other credit institution symbol, and you load money onto those cards. They're just prepaid cards. Those are not like traditional bank cards or credit cards. They're not really traceable. And so if you are being asked to send money in that way, where it's not a form of payment that's easily traceable, trackable, or you're just mailing it off to some unknown address, that's a big red flag that it is a scam. Even giving your credit card information over the phone, the goal of a scammer is to get your money as quickly as possible and then to completely disappear. That is how they hope that you'll feel pressured to make the payment right away, get the money, and then they go. So they'll convince someone to wire money or mail money, and then as soon as they have it in hand, they immediately disappear without a trace, and it's really hard to get that money back. So if you have to, and you're sure that you want to send this money, you've done your homework, then try and do it by some type of traceable method. Now, some of the other red flags, although it can vary, is that, for example, if they ask for the entire payment up front, like if you're not allowed to pay in installments, that can be a red flag. If you're paying to get work done, for example, on your house, you're trying to get certain home repairs, and then whoever's providing the service suddenly either disappears or changes the terms of the work you're supposed to be getting done, that can be a sign of a scam. If you look up, if someone says they're from a particular company but they don't have a phone number or address in like a local directory, or that you just can't even find them online, that's an indication it might be a scam. If you're hiring someone who's unlicensed, so for example, if you are trying to get home repairs and you're working with a contractor who doesn't have a license, that's problematic for various reasons, especially if the work is done poorly, or if it goes south, or they disappear. And then, other red flags would be if someone is providing misinformation, if you know that they're lying about something, that's never a good sign. Even if it seems trivial, if you find out that someone lied to you about one thing, how do you know that anything else that they told you is truthful? So those are some red flags for consumer scams. In terms of being vigilant against scams, the top suggestions that I usually give are, number one, take your time. Like I said, most scammers are trying to get you to shell out money as quickly as possible. They make you feel like you're under a time constraint. So if you take your time, you stop, you think about what's being asked of you, that is the number one thing you can do to save yourself from just jumping into a scam. The other thing is, do your research, do your homework. If somebody's calling and saying, oh, we're from the local courthouse, you've been sued and you have to pay for this fee, you don't have to pay right then. You can actually go to the court and find out, is there actually a case? Is this something I can verify? Or someone says, I'm from such and such company, I'm from your bank or your mortgage company, and we're calling because you owe us money. Hang up on that person and then independently call your mortgage company or your lender that you know how to contact them and ask them, hey, I got a call from somebody. They said that I owe money. I just want to verify that it's actually you. So do your homework, independently verify what's being told of you. Some ways to do that are also to get the details of whatever you're being told in writing. Oftentimes someone calls and says, here's what's happening, and you say, okay, well, send me the information. Oftentimes you will not hear from that person ever again, because they know that it's a scam and they're not going to send you something in writing. You can also investigate for yourself potential healthcare scams or investment scams. I've provided that contact information on the slide here. So for example, if you think that you're a potential healthcare scam victim, you can call 1-800-Medicare and call and speak to someone and see if and in fact you are a victim. Investment scams, same thing. The Department of Business Oversight has a toll-free number that you can call and ask. Just make sure you're asking questions, doing your homework. Do not give out sensitive information. Don't pay in ways that are not easily traceable. Consult with someone you trust too. That's the other good piece of advice I like to give is, if someone's saying, tell somebody in your family about it, or a trusted friend, and say, hey, I got this call from this person and they were saying this. What do you think? And sometimes just by confiding in someone you trust and actually talking through the offer or the phone call that you got or the notice you got, you'll come to realize that, wow, this really does sound like a scam, and get a good second opinion from someone you trust. Okay, so that's scams. And as I said before, their whole goal is to either get money from you quickly or to steal your personal information. If it's your personal information that gets stolen, and sometimes it's not necessarily directly from you, as many of you know now, lots of information is available on the web these days. There's lots of ways that there are information leaks. But if someone gets your information and they try and use your personal information or pretend to be you in order to spend money, use your credit, use your healthcare benefits in some way, if they're using your personal information in a way that you did not consent, that is what identity theft is. And there's a number of things that you should look for to see if you're a victim, and also ways that you can protect yourself. So examples of identity theft would be something like someone uses your Social Security information in order to borrow money from a lender to take out a small dollar loan, or they want to run up bills in your name. They don't even have to take out their own loan. They steal your information to make charges on your credit card or some other card, or some type of access to credit that you have. They try and use that to charge on your existing line of credit. Or for example, they might try and get medical care in your name. So they might file some type of Medicare claim in your name using your Medicare number that they managed to get from you. Or one example that I've heard actually come through the office is someone trying to file taxes in your name or use your social security number for that purpose. And they're using, your filing number so that when you go to pay your income taxes, it's very difficult to do because someone else is using your information. So those are examples of identity theft. Some signs would be if you're trying to withdraw money from your bank account and for some reason you see withdrawals that you don't remember taking out, or you see transactions that you don't recognize. If you stop getting bills in the mail, a lot of times identity theft, it's not just strangers stealing from you. It can even be people in your own household. I've seen a number of times where in particular, it's a senior or somebody who's vulnerable, where a family member steals their information, for example, or a credit card, uses it, and then in order to cover up that theft, they basically go through the mail and take all the bills out and prevent that victim from seeing the damage that was done. And so if you're noticing that you're not getting your bills in the mail anymore, that might be an indication that someone's stolen your identity. Another couple indicators would be something like merchants refusing your checks, or you're getting calls from debt collectors about debts that you don't owe. Someone saying, you borrowed this money or you charged this card and now you owe us for this, and you didn't spend the money. That's another handful of red flags. Medical providers, if they bill you for services that you didn't receive. So if it's saying that you got certain x-rays and you've never broken a bone and you never had a reason to get an x-ray and you never didn't get one, then potentially being billed for that might be an indicator that someone's using your medical benefits. IRS, if they do get more than one tax return, they will usually notify you and let you know that there was more than one tax return filed in your name. So you will get notifications of that nature. Or another potential way that you could have an indicator that your identity was stolen is, I don't know if anybody here has seen this before or received this. I know I have personally, where either you were part of some type of institution, some bank, even a school of some sort, where you get a letter from them that says your information was potentially compromised by a data breach. So sometimes people will say, I got this from my dentist's office that my data was potentially compromised. Someone stole into their system. Or I had one from my old college where that happened. So sometimes that can be an indicator that your identity might have been stolen. So what you should be doing is, of course, look out for those red flags, but other things you can also do are make sure you're reading your bank statements. Make sure you're opening your mail. I know that sometimes we get overwhelmed, or we just assume that we know what's in our bank statements. We don't really bother to read through them, but it's really good practice to actually open up your statements, open up your mail, review what's being charged, review the withdrawals that you're seeing from the account. Make sure that you actually can recognize what's coming in and out of your accounts. You should also be reading your explanation of benefits from any healthcare providers, watching your bills that are coming in, and most importantly is checking your credit report. So we're going to talk a little bit about your credit report, because that's usually the number one way that when consumers call our office, they say, I realized there was something unusual happening when I pulled my credit report. So you have a right to pull your credit report for free at least once a year from the three major credit reporting agencies. That's Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. So in normal times, you get to do it once every year. So for example, if you pulled your credit report today, March 16th, which is when we're doing this presentation, let's say I pulled my TransUnion report today, then I wouldn't be able to pull it again for free until next March 16th. But right now, during the pandemic, all three of the major credit reporting agencies are allowing you to pull your report for free once a week, at least through April. And so I strongly recommend that you take advantage of these extra credit reports that you're able to pull for free from these major agencies, just to, see what's on your credit report, monitor your credit report. These are considered what we call soft pulls. They do not hurt your credit score. When you are pulling your own credit report, you're not applying for any type of credit. You just want to see what's on your credit report. It should not be impacting your score. And you can do that by going to annualcreditreport.com. Again, annualcreditreport.com is the correct website. You can pull all three of your reports from that website. It's the one that is approved by the Federal Trade Commission in terms of the safest website to go. I know there's a lot of websites out there that offer you to pull your credit report for free, but the correct one, the one that's safest to do it, is annualcreditreport.com. So if you do pull your credit report and you're trying to identify potential identity theft, here are the things that you should be looking for in your credit report. The first thing is, at the top of your report, you will see personal information. You will see, any names that are associated with you, addresses that you use when you're applying for lines of credit. So you'll probably see almost every address that's been associated with you since you started becoming a borrower. You'll see contact information like phone numbers that are associated with you. If you see a lot of personal information that is completely unrelated to you, wrong names, wrong phone numbers, wrong addresses, that's an indicator that there's potentially either a mixed file, meaning your information has been mixed with another consumer, or that there's an issue of identity theft. Another indicator on your credit report where you can figure out if maybe you're a potential victim is if you see a lot of line items or credit accounts that you never opened. Let's say you're going through your credit report and you see a bunch of credit cards from different stores that you don't even shop at. That might indicate that somebody has gotten your information and is taking out credit cards in your name. The other thing, very similarly, is if you have a lot of accounts in collection for debts that you didn't incur. So if you see a lot of collection companies showing up on your credit report, and let's say you're current on all your bills, or that you didn't take out any money recently, that's also an indicator. And then finally, at the bottom of your credit report, you're going to see what's called an inquiry section. That section is there because there's actually two parts to the inquiry section. One part of the inquiry section are what are called promotional inquiries or soft pulls, where it's just creditors who are thinking about offering you something or sending you some type of promotional material. A lot of us get stuff in the mail like, you're eligible for a free, not a free, but a credit card at 0% interest, for a period of time. We get a lot of these solicitation notices. And a lot of times that's because someone just wanted to pull your credit, see kind of what kind of borrower you are, and then they make some type of offer to you in the mail. But those are not the type of inquiries on your report that are going to impact your credit score. The only inquiries that you should really care about are the ones that are in the hard pull section, or the section that indicates that you've applied for a line of credit. So every one of the credit reporting agencies, they have this section where it will tell you, here are all of the creditors that you applied for in like the last 3 or 4 years. Usually it's a 3 or 4 year period. If you see a bunch of creditors where they're saying you applied for credit with them, but you didn't, that is a definite red flag that you are a potential victim of identity theft. Because what may happen is maybe they applied for credit in your name, but were turned down. So you don't see it in any other part of your credit report. So they don't successfully open up an account, but they certainly tried. They may have tested out your credit worthiness to see if they could pull some type of loan using your information. So by all means, look at the bottom of your credit report and even check the inquiry section. Because if you see a lot of inquiries that you didn't make, definitely a sign that you're potentially a victim of identity theft. If you do believe that someone has stolen your information, especially if you see accounts that are open, or collectors are telling you owe money that you do not owe, you're going to want to take the following steps to address the identity theft. The first one being, you're going to want to place a fraud alert with the credit reporting agencies. And we'll talk about that in more detail. We'll talk about all 3 steps in more detail. But the first step would be contact the credit reporting agencies, being Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, and alert them to the fact that you're a victim of identity theft and that you want to put a fraud alert on your account. Then you're going to want to get your credit reports from those agencies and check all of your reports across the board from all of the 3 major agencies to see if there's any accounts, extra accounts that are there that you weren't even aware of, so that you get a really good understanding of how much damage was done. And then the third step is that you need to create an identity theft report on the Federal Trade Commission's website. And I'll provide a link in one of the following slides so that you can see what it looks like and how to fill it out. It's very easy to do. If you're struggling though with any of these steps to protect yourself, feel free to contact our office or any of your local legal aid offices that provide consumer services, because we can provide support if you're struggling to do any of these things. So the first one, like I said, is do a fraud alert. So when you call the credit reporting agency, let them know you're a victim of identity theft, ask them to put a fraud alert on your credit file. Usually that initial alert is only going to be for 90 days. So what that red flag, that fraud alert does is it marks your account, it puts a little red flag on it that says, hey, there's a potential fraud alert here, so that if additional lines of credit, if someone tries to take additional lines of credit out in your name or apply for additional credit cards in your name, and they pull your credit report, your credit report will have a little red flag on it saying, hey, we potentially have an issue here, where the person who's applying for this credit card or this line of credit isn't actually the person who they say they are. And then the other thing you want to do with those credit reporting agencies is confirm that they're going to contact the other 2 companies. So really, you should only have to contact one of the 3 major credit reporting agencies, and then they should, pass on the word to the other 2. So just make sure you ask for that. The other thing is, even though the initial fraud alert is usually only for 90 days, you can actually get an extended fraud alert put on your account. For example, like a 7-year fraud alert on your credit report. But usually, in order to get that extended fraud alert, you need to complete the steps, do a complaint with the Federal Trade Commission, circle back to the credit reporting agencies and provide that documented proof that you were actually a victim. And then they will give you some more extended protections. And these, like I said, these alerts, they make it more difficult for someone who stole your information to open new accounts or to borrow extra money, because now your file has been flagged. So potential lenders know, hey, there might be an issue here with someone who's trying to take out money in your name. As I said before, you should pull your credit report. The one thing I didn't mention is, in addition to the typical credit report you're entitled to just generally once per year, if you are a victim of identity theft, then the credit reporting agencies actually are willing to provide you extra copies of your credit report, or more frequent free copies of your credit report, in order to monitor it more regularly, because you may be able to deal with the initial theft and get rid of any accounts that were incorrect. But you're going to want to continue to monitor your credit report to see if, for example, a scammer or an identity thief is continuing to use your information down the line. You do want to make an identity theft report with the Federal Trade Commission. So if you don't have the ability to copy this link that is provided on this slide, where it says www.ftccomplaintassistant.gov, you can just Google FTC identity theft report, and it will pop up a page that will prompt you in filling out this report. So it looks like this on this slide. This is what the website looks like. And it will walk you through step by step. You click on the Get Started button, and it will ask you what type of issue you're facing. It will ask you, for example, if this is a medical healthcare information identity theft issue, or a credit card. And then once you answer all of the questions, it will populate a report for you that you can print out. And then you can use that to either send to the credit reporting agencies, or if someone is trying to collect money from you, like a debt. Backing up just a little bit, because I want to identify, it used to be that you had to file a police report first before taking the step to do an FTC report. But now you don't necessarily have to do a police report. They ask you if you filed one when you're filling out the FTC report, but it's not required. I always say, however, it's good practice to try and file a police report and get a police report number, because, for example, if a debt collector is trying to eventually sue you and they know that you're a victim of identity theft, and you sent them the police report and you sent them the FTC report, then there's a good chance that you have some extra protections to deal with it if, for example, someone's just not believing you or continues to try and collect money from you, even though they know you're a victim of identity theft. And here's what I mean by that. So if you're a victim, it's not like there's nothing you can do. Not only do you have a right to have these fraud alerts put on your file, but if you go through the steps and you make the police report and the FTC reports, and then you provide a copy of those reports to the credit reporting agencies, the credit reporting agencies are supposed to remove any improper information that's on your report that is a result of identity theft. So they're supposed to remove those negative items. You shouldn't have to live with them on your credit report, because it's not actually you who took out anything having to do with those accounts. The other thing is that debt collectors are supposed to cease any collection activities. If, for example, you are contacted by a debt collector and you send them written notice that you're a victim, you provide a copy of the reports that you filed, upon receiving that notice, the debt collector is supposed to stop all collection efforts, including like if they're already trying to sue you. And that only if they made some good faith effort to verify the information, only after making a good faith determination that the information does not establish that you're not responsible for that debt in question, then they can recommence collections. So basically, it puts this responsibility on a debt collector that they have to verify if the debt is really, if it really belongs to you or not. If you provide evidence of a police report and an FTC report, and you can show proof that you did not borrow the money, then those debt collectors are really supposed to stop. And if they continue to come after you for the money, then technically you can bring a claim against them, because now they're violating their rights, because they know that they're trying to collect on money that you did not borrow and you did not use. Okay, and just for good measure, I will let you know that if you want a copy of these slides, we are happy to provide copies. You can reach out to our office for a copy if you'd like a PDF. We'll try and provide PDFs available for those of you who are participating online and downloading this workshop. But in here, in the slides, I did provide a couple example letters. If you're a victim of identity theft and you're noticing issues on your credit report, or if you're getting collection notices from debt collectors, here are some template letters that you can use to respond to protect yourself. These are also available on the Federal Trade Commission's website if you just want to go directly to them and download a copy. But I've provided a couple sample template letters that you could use so that you don't have to recreate the wheel. You can just use these examples. So in this slide, it's an example of a letter that you can send to a credit reporting agency if there's fraudulent accounts on your credit report. You notice a bunch of accounts there that you didn't open. You can use this letter to send to them to try and dispute them and get them off. Very similar in terms of if you see fraudulent charges on existing accounts. Let's say you open up a credit card account and you're seeing charges that you know you didn't make. Here's a letter that you could send to say, hey, I did not make this purchase or this charge. I'm a victim of identity theft. Please remove it. And then very similarly, here's a dispute letter. If a new account was opened in your name, here's how you can address that. So they're relatively similar. You're just letting whoever, either credit reporting agency or your current creditor or this new creditor, know that you're a victim, how to communicate that. But before we go, this has all been how to identify identity theft and what to do about it, but it's still good practice to, as much as you can, try and avoid it from happening, because I can say from personal experience and having dealt with many clients who have had identity theft issues, and especially if you've already experienced it, you would know this, that it is a tedious process in terms of that you have to do a lot of documentation, a lot of communications with credit reporting agencies and with creditors and banks, and it's such a headache. So if there's any way to avoid it, it would be ideal. So here are some ways to avoid it from happening. It's not a guarantee, but it's some good practices. The first one being protect your personal information. Do not have your financial records or things that have identification numbers on it. Do not let them be out and open, even in your own home. If there's ever a break-in, lock things away in a safe space. If you get bank account information or statements, if there's identifying information or account numbers, shred your information. Don't just chuck it in the waste bin. Make sure you're disposing of information like that. Limit what you're carrying around. I can't tell you how many times I've had clients come to me and say, I had my Social Security card in my wallet and it got stolen. Please do not carry information like that in your wallet, because if your purse or wallet does get stolen, there's a very critical piece of identifying information right there. Only share information that you need to. Don't be an open book. When someone, especially you don't know them, is asking for information, only give very limited information. Even, if possible, if you are not sure why someone's asking you for certain information, I would be very hesitant to even provide address information, birth date, social healthcare information. Just be very stingy with the information that you provide. Then the other things that you should be doing are protecting your computer and mobile devices. Make sure you've installed antivirus software and firewalls. Like I said, a lot of information now, unfortunately, is very accessible on the web. So do your very best to protect your computer. We all keep a lot of very sensitive information on our computers these days. Do not open links from, if you see emails, even if they look to be from companies you recognize, be very, very careful about clicking on links in emails. That is a very common way that we hear that people accidentally get their information stolen. One tip I like to give to others is that if you receive an email and they tell you to click on a link or to provide contact information or credit card information, one of the things I like to do is click on the forward button. And sometimes what you'll realize is, even though the initial email looks to come from a company that you recognize, if you click on the forward email button and you look down at who the actual email is from, because when you forward emails, they'll have the sender's information in the body of the forwarded email. You'll realize very quickly, if you look at the sender or the initial sender's information, usually the email's got all sorts of numbers and weird letter combinations, and it's not actually the company they say it's from. So that's sometimes a good indicator if this is a scammer or not. If, however, you click forward and it says, inquiries at amazon.com, then yeah, it's probably actually from the company. So that's a little tip I like to give people is, if you're not sure if the email you're being sent is actually from the company they say it's from, click the forward button and see in the body of the email what it actually says the email is from. The other thing is that a big mistake people make is that they get rid of old computers without actually wiping them clean. Sometimes people don't even know how to do that. I would strongly, strongly, strongly recommend that you get someone you trust who knows how to do this to help you with it. Because sometimes you'll get rid of old computers, you'll donate them, you'll sell them, you'll trash them. And then somebody who knows how to get into your computer will use that to collect any personal information you have left on that old computer. So be very careful getting rid of old computers. The other thing is be very careful and make sure you're using safe Wi-Fi passwords and encrypted data when you're sending stuff. Those open networks, like, for example, at your local cafe where it's free Wi-Fi, that is a very easy way for scammers to collect information. If you're sending very sensitive stuff while sitting there using a free Wi-Fi system, be very, very careful doing that. I don't recommend sending any personal information when you're just sitting at someone's open network. Save that kind of stuff for when you're at home and you have a secure Wi-Fi connection. The other thing is just to stay vigilant. Collect your mail every day. Pay attention to the bills and the billing cycles when you should be expecting information. Pay attention to what's in your bills when they come in. Review your credit card statements, and just really pay attention to the details. And the final thing is that, you know, certain credit card and bank service providers, they have policies regarding identity theft protection. It doesn't hurt to contact them ahead of time and see what their policies are in terms of if you have some extra protection. So for example, some credit card companies, if you alert them to the fact that you have been a victim of a scam or that someone is making charges on your account, they will do their own fraud investigation, and that they will return the money to you completely, or you know, only charge you up to like $50 if you respond quickly enough for the fraud charge. So go to your, you know, banking institutions and ask them about their policies on identity theft to see what they do if you have been a victim. And so before I go, I just wanted to put up there, here are a host of services that we provide in our office. Feel free to contact us if you need help on any of these items. At the very bottom of this slide is our telephone number. If you would like to get a one-on-one consultation with our office, you can call 510-271-8443. And our intake extension number is extension 300. So 510-271-8443, extension 300. You can also go on our website. There's a way to send an inquiry by our website. So feel free to do that. And we're going to end this portion of the recording and the slides here, but I am going to stay behind to answer any remaining questions. I really do want to thank you for participating today, to listening. We're happy to provide materials to anybody who needs them. We're happy to provide consultation to anyone who needs it. I know that it's probably very stressful if you're listening to this presentation. It means you think you might be a victim or are a victim of identity theft. So the good news is you're not alone. There are options available to you. You just have to know where to start.